Hello and welcome to Japanese Explainer. So this week's question is from Lillian. Hi Lillian. And she says, how would you distinguish the usage of ni versus e? She was trying to describe this to her roommate and she was like, specificity of destination and vibes? But she thinks there must be a better answer than that. So actually that is the answer, but let's talk about the vibes, right? What are these vibes? Now, because this is vibes based, and also this is just something we should all be doing in life, before I recorded this, I went ahead and did some research to check to make sure that I understand the vibes the same way that the Japanese internet understands the vibes. The good news for us is that all of the articles pretty much said the same thing. And pretty much all matched exactly what I would have said anyway. So that is a great way to check yourself. I do that a lot as a translator. Let's check, make sure I'm on the right page. I've been on the same page for 20 plus years now, but there's no harm in checking it just to make sure that I'm not hallucinating the answer. I picked the one that I thought was the best, the most easily laid out, had the best structure so that I could summarize it to you here in English. And also, if you're a little bit more advanced in Japanese and you want to try reading the article in Japanese, you can go to the link in the description and you can try to do that yourself using this as a guide to check, did I understand this right? And that is an article from nihongomistake.com. It's called Ni to E no Chigai, the difference between ni and e. And essentially what it's telling us is ni and e are both particles that tell us a directionality. Something is happening in a direction or a direction is being referred to, but there are a few differences in nuance and usage, and they are about the vibes. So let's go through it. What does this article tell us? The first thing it tells us is we get a lot of questions about this. As somebody is studying Japanese, it's totally normal for them to ask questions about this because you can use ni or e with the same verbs, iku, kuru, that kind of thing. So what is the difference? Specificity of destination, which Lillian mentioned, is one of the criteria. Times when we use ni, which I would say overall is the most frequently used of ni versus e, because although it's a little less poetic and more prosaic, it doesn't have a nice sound to it necessarily. It is more flexible. It covers a lot of things. But the first thing that it does is it tells us where something is existing, of course. And since existing doesn't happen in a direction, that's always ni. So, watashi wa koko ni imasu. Always ni, right? The second thing it's going to do is tell us what is our destination or goal. So, Tokyo ni ikimasu is their first example. I'm going to Tokyo. Ie ni kaerimasu. I'm going home. Gakkou ni kimashita. I came to school. And the little hint that it gives is all of these have ni, and all of these have a very clear destination. I'm going to Tokyo. I'm going home. I'm going to school. So I'm not going west necessarily. Now, if I'm going west, I want to use e because e is telling us more a direction than a destination. So it's not as important when you're using e what the destination is. You can still have the destination in the sentence. So the very first example they give is Tokyo e ikimasu. We had Tokyo ni ikimasu. Now we have Tokyo e ikimasu. Both of them perfect sentences. Everything is fine. And they have a destination in them. So what is the difference? The difference is very subtle. It is a difference of nuance. And it is a little softer. And it also is more about the journey than the destination. So Tokyo e ikimasu feels a little more focused on the journey than the destination. We could also use this with mukau, the verb that's literally to head in the direction of. So one of the examples they have is kugo e mukaimasu, heading towards the airport. Sorry, if you're hearing the little doggy feet in the background, I apologize. My dog is very resentful that I'm recording for you guys instead of centering my entire life around him. So, sorry, Marshall. He's coming in and out. Now, let's recap when you can use either, and it's a difference of nuance versus when one actually truly makes more sense or doesn't make sense in a certain situation. So this site, which is very well organized, its next section is showing us, okay, what are the cases where you can use both of them? And it's exactly the same as what we talked about. Nihon ni ikimasu, Nihon e ikimasu. Byoin ni ikimasu, Byoin e ikimasu. Same sentence, difference is nuance only. With ni, you're focused a little bit more on the specific destination. With e, you are focused on directionality. I'm heading for the hospital. So when I say the destination is not what matters, that's a nuanced thing. I state it as a big statement, and this website also states it as a big statement, but it's really important to remember in these cases, you're not actually conveying to the listener, look, I'm heading towards the hospital, man, but like, whether I get there, it's about the journey. That's not what's really happening. These are slight differences. But there are going to be some instances, and this is number 5 on the Nihongo mistake page, where it is more natural to use e. And one of them is when you're writing a letter. So you're writing a letter to Sara, you would say Sara e at the top, maybe. And if you are talking about writing a letter, you might say Tomodachi e tegami o kakimasu, which is one of the examples on this page. I'm going to write a letter to my friend. You use e there. And why e? If I'm trying to put it into words, I would say there's a couple reasons. One is one of the reasons that is listed on the site, which is your friend is not a concrete physical destination. But I think it's also that e involves feelings. And when you're sending a letter to your friend, you're often sending feelings to your friend, right? That's kind of what a letter is. You're sending your feelings. You're sending something you thought was important. And e is more poetic. When we try to convey emotions, we use e. So here's another example from the same site. Ryoshin e kansha no kimochi o tsutaemasu. I will convey my feelings of gratitude towards my parents. So when it's feelings, you use e. You're conveying your feelings to another person, you use e. When you're sending a letter to someone, you use e. And I think, why we use e for a letter is a little bit about it's not a physical destination point, but it's also because letters are feelings. And as I've mentioned numerous times, because that was the first thing that occurred to me, e is poetic, right? So the next thing they say on this site is, look, when you're writing poetry, you use e. It then goes on to say you most often use e rather than ni if it is an abstract type of direction. So their examples here are ashita e susumimashou. Ashita e susumimashou. Let's move towards the future. Let's make progress towards the future. Let's walk towards tomorrow. And then the last one is head for the light. Hikari e mukatte iku. Naturally, you don't say hikari ni mukatte iku. You can say that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like people won't understand. It's not like you've changed the meaning. But e feels older. It feels more poetic. And so when you're doing something abstract, like you're walking towards the future, those are situations where you're trying to be poetic, right? So you are going to use e. The rest of the time, you can use ni. And again, in your normal interactions with people, as you're having a conversation, truly, there's not a situation where your choice of ni or e is going to meaningfully impact what you're doing with that person. We're in the realm here with this ni versus e of decisions that you might make, whether consciously or subconsciously, that are leveling you up, not ones that matter for your life. There's not going to be consequences to this type of choice. It is going to be, how awesome do you sound? So TLDR, Lillian was right. Ni is about specificity of destination. You use e based on vibes. And this is something that either you'll kind of pick up naturally, this difference over time, and incorporate it, or you won't. And I say this as a Japanese instructor. My responsibility is to tell you, when is this a crucial, you must get it right, And when is this just a nice to have? And me versus A, it's a nice to have. I kind of love this question because Lillian, you were right. What you told your roommate was correct. You absolutely nailed this answer. So good for you. And again, I will link the page that I read. You would also like to try to do some reading. So thank you so much, everyone. Please ask a question in Japanese Explainer. You don't have to know the answer to the question already. Go ahead, ask whatever you want. The link to that is also in the description. And everybody have a happy and safe weekend.